Hey everyone, how's it going? Desi is here with another video. We are going to be doing a book review on George R.R. Martin's Storm of Swords. So this book review is kind of not very chronological because this is the third book of the series. First book is Game of Thrones. Second book, Clash of Kings. Third book, A Storm of Swords, which is what I will be talking about today. I don't want to get too in-depth into the actual plot too much because I think if you've read the book, especially if you've read the book, you kind of know what happens, and I don't want to get too into the specifics. I kind of want to pivot this review more towards just my own thoughts, my own retrospective of the series up until this point. And to preface that, I want to begin by kind of explaining my circumstance around reading this series. So I've always been a Game of Thrones fan, and I always was intrigued with kind of the atmosphere of it and the characters. I always have loved fantasy. Obviously, I play EverQuest, I play World of Warcraft, I play all these fantasy games. I love the aesthetic, I love the atmosphere. So Game of Thrones, right when I heard of it, I instantly became hooked and obsessed, and I wanted to learn more. But the thing was, I was 10 years old when the show came out in 2011, and my parents did not want me to watch it for, stuff that's in the show,
Boobies.
I won't name the rest, With that, I think not being able to, watch it from my parents, kind of restricting that for me, made me even more interested in the world of Ice and Fire. So I would just watch YouTube videos about the storylines, about the books, about stuff happening in the show. I just wanted to know as much as I could about this world because I think I wanted to prove to my parents and my dad, especially because he read the books, that I'm well versed in this world,
Still worthy.
and I was just so intrigued in it as well. And I think on my 13th birthday or something, 13th, I think 14th, or it doesn't even matter, it's irrelevant, I received these books for Christmas, the whole series, all 5 books, and this was before I even was able to watch the show, so I got all the books. Since I'm doing a review right now, it means that I didn't actually read all of the books when I got them. I'm kind of glad I didn't read all of them right away because in retrospect, I don't think you can understand a lot of the nuances. Even now, I feel like I miss a lot of subtext and stuff when I'm even reading it now. But especially, I read the first book and second or half of the second book when I was 15. And I think when you're 15, you have an understanding of these concepts, but I think you do miss a lot of the details, especially in George R.R. Martin's writing. I think there's a lot of nuances in the characters' thoughts and interactions and words that go unsaid between characters, especially just the concept of Westeros in general and just the spreading of misinformation and just all these modern concepts that are extremely relevant. And it really does feel like a grounded real world in a fantasy setting, and I really do appreciate that, and it really inspires me to kind of write my own stories with a different perspective, that a fantasy world can be very grounded and very abstract and kind of fantastical at certain times as well. There's a good balance, and I think it creates a really intriguing story and narrative. And so with that, I finished Clash of Kings a month and a half or so ago. I just decided to just pick the book up again and pick up exactly where I left off when I was 15, a little over 8 years ago, and just started reading again. And I'm obsessed with the world. And I think having House of the Dragon Season 2 out definitely helps kind of get me reinvested in Westeros again, kind of seeing the Targaryen dynasty, the Dance for Dragons. It's just always such a fun time when I get obsessed with Game of Thrones again, because when House of the Dragon Season 1 came out, I got so obsessed with Westeros again, just watching 12-hour videos about the Targaryen dynasty and all of these tragic events and just getting re-immersed in this world. Not to go too far off on a tangent, but one thing I really love about this book, or just the series in general, is how much history is actually in the world itself. There's so many like older historical figures said throughout the stories, throughout the books, and the world just feels like it has such a rich underbelly to it. Just like when you watch the show or even when you read the books, it feels like you're really only looking at the tip of the iceberg. And I just really like that because it makes the world feel so mysterious, and that you really don't know a lot about it. You're only seeing these glimpses of the present moments and kind of whispers of the past. I think there's very few stories that so far that I have read and become obsessed with that have just that very authentic, rich history. So moving into kind of talking more in depth about A Storm of Swords, there is just absolutely so much that happens in this book that I really had no idea happened in this book. Spoilers ahead, just want to let you know, there will be spoilers. I always thought that the Red Wedding happened in A Feast for Crows, primarily because the book was red. So I guess I just assumed, oh yeah, Red Wedding, red book. That makes sense. And so going into Storm of Swords, I thought it was just going to be build up to the Red Wedding and kind of a lot of like season 3 of the show. Like I use the show a lot for kind of a reference point when I read the books. And especially when I'm visualizing the characters, it's nice to have like a good recollection of the show so you can kind of see the world a bit better. But it's also kind of, I try to challenge myself when I read too, to try to recreate what these characters look like in my own way of how I would imagine the characters to be, trying to separate the book from the show. But it's hard to do that. And I watched the show and I can't like take that back. So reading the book, it's not going to be a completely fresh experience, but I think it's still fresh in and of the point that like you can like read the characters' thoughts now, and it's like you're rewatching the show, but with a magnifying glass, and you're looking at every little detail, and it's just a super enjoyable experience for me personally. But anyways, kind of going over plot points very briefly in this review. Storm of Swords, the main characters that are shown in this book, Samuel is in a couple chapters, which I really enjoyed. There's Arya, Jon, Catelyn, Davos, Sansa, Daenerys, Jaime, and Tyrion. So very good mixed cast of characters throughout all of the major points of like the events that are occurring, stuff on the wall. There's White Walkers popping up and dying and getting vaporized. There's wildling invasions with Jon. He gets with Ygritte. Ygritte dies. You know, Catelyn with Robb. He marries Jane Westerling, or I think that was the last name. It was Jane. That's Robb's wife's name in the books. Red Wedding happens. The Freys feel betrayed. Kill him off with Tywin's help and Roose Bolton's help. He says Jaime Lannister sends his regards, stabs him. It's like, dang. Like, just reading that scene in the book is like, it just really goes to show how much the actual show did these scenes so much justice. Especially the Viper in the mountain fight. In the book, it's literally like a 1-to-1, and the show just literally creates these scenes straight from the pages, and it's super cool to see. It makes... like, the next time I rewatch the show, I'm going to appreciate it so much more for those aspects. For Davos, like, he starts off almost dead. He's, like, after the Battle of Blackwater, he's stranded, like, just kind of next to a rock, pretty much, and he's about to die. And then it literally ends with him being, like, the hand of Stannis. Them going up north and, like, taking out the wildlings. We got Sansa, who like marries Tyrion in this book, and Tyrion's the other POV character, so there's kind of a interesting mirror like between those two characters throughout the book for a little bit. And then Joffrey has to die at the Purple Wedding, and Sansa's taken to the Vale with Littlefinger, so whole different switch up in her story there. Daenerys is just kind of on a rampage in this book, just invading places, freeing people. She gets the Unsullied army. She's in Meereen now, which is where she's at for a while, up to like season 6 of the show. She banishes Jorah because Jorah is revealed to be kind of like an informant originally, but now he says that he loves her. He won't do that. You know how it is. Barristan Selmy. He's the old Kingsguard that Joffrey exiled because he's too old, but now he's with Daenerys. And then Jaime, I was so excited to see a Jaime chapter, or Jaime POV chapters in this book. Right when I opened the book, the first POV chapter after the prologue is a Jaime chapter, and that just got me so hyped. It's just super cool to see that, just a new character, but a character that we're already familiar with in kind of a outside perspective. He loses his hand in this book. He gets back to King's Landing after a bit, and he's with Brienne, which is just a really interesting dynamic that they have. The Tyrion chapters are always my favorite. I love the Tyrion chapters and just how he explains things, how he thinks about things, how he views people. You can really see these characters' insecurities, like subconsciously in the way George R. R. Martin writes them. Their perceptions of other people, like for Tyrion, he always looks at other people kind of like on a very physical basis, like, oh, he has long legs, like just very discreet ways of describing people that isn't flamboyantly like, I'm insecure, I'm a dwarf, but it's just very subtle in how he views other people. And I think that's very realistic to ourselves. We don't realize a lot of our insecurities like all the time, but they show up in very creeping patterns that we don't quite notice, but from an outsider perspective looking in, you can kind of see those things popping up. And that's why I really like just how he writes, and I love the nuanced perspectives of different characters, because he does such a good job at creating the inner worlds of these people and how they view themselves, how they view others, their wants, their desires, their griefs. A Storm of Swords is just an excellent book from beginning to end. You know, I don't really want to say too much more. I'm currently reading A Feast for Crows right now. I'm on like page 200 or so. There's a lot of characters being introduced that was not in the first 3 books. So that's just really fun to see, just new characters being switched up. The book is a lot shorter than Storm for Swords. Storm for Swords is like 926 pages. Feast for Crows is like a little over 700. You can kind of see the difference there. So it makes a 700-page book feel like a short story. And I never really got to cultivate that good of a perspective with like reading big books. Like I'd always feel kind of daunted by, you know, just reading these very long novels and like feeling very disheartened. But I'm really glad I kind of picked back up, especially reading this series, because they're so long, and it really does help like desensitize, like reading longer texts. Not trying to race to the end, but just enjoy the experience. That's also like in my EverQuest videos that I make, why I tried to develop a different take of playing these games, more so for just the journey and not trying to just race to the end right away. With that, I think I'm going to end the video here. Thank you for watching if you're still watching this video. If you've read the book, I'd really appreciate your insights, or just if you've read the series in general, or you want to read it. Like, I'd love to hear what you have to say. Yeah, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like. Pushing to 1,000 subscribers, so if you want to hit subscribe, that would be amazing. I make just whatever content I feel like. Video games, reading, music, you name it. Decius will be here for it. Anyways, take care, everyone. Peace.